On here. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the December committee meetings of the Tennessee Fish and Wildlife Commission. And I'll officially call this meeting to order and thank Ducks Unlimited for having us here today. And I will turn it over to Commissioner Bill Cox to lead us in the invocation and the pledge, please.
Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for this glorious day and the Christmas season that you've blessed us with. I ask you today to lead, guide, and direct this commission and this agency, that the decisions we make, the discussions we have will be pleasing to you. We ask you to bless our country, bless our servicemen and women, and wherever they may be. In Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Cox. Mary, would you call the roll, please?
Connie Ballou, Brad Box, Stan Butt, Wally Childress, Bill Cox,
Here.
Greg Davenport, Chris Devaney,
Here.
Ford Little, Rhonda Moody, Chip Saltzman, Tommy Woods,
Here.
Hank Wright, Jimmy Granbery.
Here.
Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Mary. Appreciate that. Director Maxedon, would you like to give a report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon, members of the commission, and good afternoon, members of the public. We appreciate everybody being here today. We got a good crowd. I know many of you folks have traveled from East Tennessee, come all the way across the state, so we're very thankful for you making that travel to come over to be able to speak with us today. This time of year always carries a special excitement for many of us. Eagerly waiting for our favorite times of the year. I know many of the folks in the room are hunters. We eagerly wait for all of our hunting seasons to come in. We've already seen some great enthusiasm and dedication from hunters across the state. We've already seen a lot of successes. In fact, you see some of these on the screen here. We've had a very successful bear season so far, deer season, and waterfowl seasons. Some of these successes include youth hunts and some of the ladies' hunts that you'll see on the screen. As an agency, we're incredibly proud of the role that we play in managing Tennessee's deer population. This ensures that hunters will continue to have successful hunts for generations to come. This is also my personal favorite time of the year. It's a chance to spend quality time with family and friends in the duck blind and make lasting memories. We're especially grateful to be here at the Ducks Unlimited headquarters today. They've been outstanding partners to the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency, and they're outstanding partners to the conservation world in general, especially to waterfowl conservation. This summer, they joined us for waterfowl field days at Bogota Wildlife Management Area. They had a Green Wings event that introduced hundreds of young people to the joy of conservation and duck hunting. And of course, their conservation efforts nationwide are crucial in maintaining a strong, sustainable duck population, one that all of us can continue to enjoy. Some of you may not know, but today is the second opener. I'm a little hurt that we're here today having to be at the meeting, but we've got a lot of folks that are afield. Just got a text. Commissioners, you'll be happy to hear this. Kent Woods, former commissioner, just sent me a 9-man limit, so they're actually out in the field having a pretty successful day today. He's rubbing that in on us just a little bit. As we approach the end of the year, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the tireless work of our TWRA employees. The staff make a huge difference in really working through this and helping us to make a great hunting tradition for many. They make these traditions possible. From biologists to law enforcement officers to our public outreach teams to our business operations staff, your dedication ensures that Tennessee Wildlife Resources remains protected, that we have sustainable populations to hunt in the future. Our success throughout the year wouldn't be possible without the unwavering leadership of you, commissioners, without your vision and your dedicated leadership. Since our last meeting, the commissioners have been actively involved in outreach events. These are some of the ones that you see on the screen. There was a sawbriar feather to fork hunt that Commissioner Moody was involved in putting on, her and Mr. Fred Moody. And then Commissioner Childress supported a great raccoon youth hunt event out in West Tennessee near the Dyersburg area. kind of a unique area. I went out to both of those events. You see it on the screen to your left. Look at the enormous amount. Most of those in blue shirts are students. They saw several hundred students came through there at Feather to Fork. And then at the Raccoon Hunt event, there was about 45 different youth that participated in that. They had a big time. Helped us maybe a little bit with our predator issues with turkeys as well while they were out there. I'd also like to express our deep appreciation for the time and attention that you have dedicated to the proposal for a license fee increase. We understand it's never an easy decision to raise fees, but the funds generated from these fees are critical in supporting our conservation efforts. They're important to creating access for outdoor recreation and ensuring that we can continue teaching Tennesseans the skills that they need to care for our natural resources. Looking ahead, I'm eager for today's discussion, as well as the opportunity for the public input from those who have joined us. Again, thank you. I know many of you traveled a long way across the state to be able to come to share today. Every license purchase helps fund conservation and outdoor activities. So we deeply appreciate all of our license holders, your continued contributions to preserve Tennessee's rich outdoor heritage. Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Director Maxidon. And on behalf of the commission, we want to thank you for your leadership. I know all this stuff takes a lot of time and effort and work, and you tell me all the time you travel from one end of the state to the other, and we just appreciate your effort and your leadership leading this great commission and this agency. So we appreciate your efforts. So at this point, I'd like to introduce Mr. Dan Thiel, Executive Secretary of Ducks Unlimited and Chief Operating Officer of Wetlands American Trust. And Dan, would you like to say a few words? Thank you, sir.
Good morning, or good afternoon. I'm Dan Thiel.
Can you get to the mic, Dan? Right here, or either one, it doesn't matter. That way they can hear you online.
Most of our folks are in the field today, which is why I'm here, but I'm honored to be here. We are so honored to have this organization at our national headquarters. Ducks Unlimited was founded in New York in 1937. We moved to Memphis in 1992. One of the greatest decisions we ever made was to move to Tennessee. The Ducks Unlimited organization looks almost identical to the audience and the commission that is in this room today. You are Ducks Unlimited. Nationwide, we have about 650,000 dues-paying members. We're now one of the largest membership organizations in the United States. Every day, nearly 2 million people follow us on one form of social media. Last year, our budget achieved $330 million. Last year, for the first time, we put 1 million acres of conservation on the ground in 1 year. And that's just in the United States. We also work in Mexico. We also work in Canada. But no place is more important to us than Tennessee. This group is welcome to be a part of our headquarters anytime you want to come to West Tennessee. We would love to have you here. Let me share something that we're doing that we're very, very excited about. We have been focused on our youth mission for the last 10 years. Prior to 10 years ago, our youth program was known as Green Wings, and it focused primarily on little kids, elementary school, coloring books, games, camping trips. We had a great idea about 10 years ago, and my son was one of the founders of the Christian Brothers High School Ducks Unlimited chapter when he was a senior in high school. Today, we have over 150 college DU chapters around the country. We have over 100 high school chapters around the country. The neat thing about that, today, over half of the employees that we hire through Ducks Unlimited, and nationally, we have over 850 employees, 200 in Memphis, but 850 across the country. Over half of the people that we've hired in the last 4 years came through our high school and college program. It is a great feeder system for hiring regional directors who do our fundraising and biologists who go in the field and deliver our conservation. I know that you all focus on youth and education programs. We take it very seriously because the hunters of tomorrow are those young people today, and it is a very, very high priority for everything we do at Ducks Unlimited. So we wish you all a happy holiday season, great hunting season. Thank you for being at Ducks Unlimited National Headquarters.
Thank you, Dan, and we appreciate your hospitality, letting us have our meeting here. Before we get started on the agenda, I'm going to read into the record the guests that are here today. And forgive me if I mispronounce your name, because some of these are a little harder to read than others. Justin Jones, Sheila Westray, Rusty O'Rourke, Jack Lynch, Campbell County, Troy Goldsby, Kenny Trott, Clara and Laura Dye, they're regulars, welcome. Rick Wolbrecht, Nick Crafton, Bill Stanley, Tommy Overton, Angela and Scott Damco, Joe and Sherry Mathau, Chris Roberts, Lee Worley, David Atkins, Zachary Marlowe, Dwayne Baird, Johnny Bruce, and Tyler Hand. Welcome, folks, and at the end of the agenda, you'll have the opportunity to speak if you so request, and I have that on the chart. At this time, I'd like to turn the meeting over to the Chair of the Wildlife Committee, Commissioner Hank Wright.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to invite our Chief of Wildlife, Mr. Joe Benedict.
Good afternoon, commissioners and members of the public. Thank you for allowing us time on your agenda today. This is my favorite presentation that I get to give to you each year, where we share the Biologist and Technician of the Year. Before we do that, I thought I would give another plug for DU. We've heard a lot from them, and we appreciate their partnership and their allowing us to be here today. We, as the director said, and others, we've got a longstanding partnership with Ducks Unlimited, and they work from the breeding grounds in Canada through the United States, including in Tennessee, all the way down into Canada, or to Mexico, rather. We've done a lot of work with Ducks Unlimited in Tennessee. You know, we're here in West Tennessee. A lot of the wetlands on our wildlife management areas, the levees, the water control structures, the culverts, they were designed by, and some of them were installed by Ducks Unlimited. I know Jason Maxedon, our director, built some of those impoundments years ago. Jamie Feddersen, our waterfowl coordinator, who many of y'all have seen and know, he had an idea a couple of years ago, or basically a need. He said, we've got this aging infrastructure in these wetland compounds where we overwinter waterfowl, have wading bird and other wetland migratory bird species that use those habitats going south and going back north in the spring. But we're always kind of behind. A structure will start leaking. We'll have a failure. We'll have to go and ask you folks for money, or the director's office, and we'll have to fix something either just before or during duck season, kind of spur of the moment things. And Jamie's idea was, boy, we need another person to come help inventory all those structures and levees that we have. We've got great partnerships with Ducks Unlimited. Sometimes they come to us and say, do you have a project in Chattanooga or in Knoxville? We have a donor that wants to put money in the ground, invest money in habitat. So Jamie's idea was to create this inventory, prioritize that list so we could be a little more proactive in maintaining and even upgrading some of these wetland structures, these wetland complexes. So fast forward to about a year ago, I was at a meeting in Missouri, a wetland summit, ran into Nick Wiley, their DU's chief operating officer, and pitched an idea to him, this idea that, it's difficult for us to get positions. They have been such a great partner. I thought, we could fund a position. Can you guys co-fund that position and provide the position for that wetland specialist, if you will? So we have Tyler Hand with us today. He's in the back. I'll ask him to come up. There he is. There's a little gift. I'll let him share that. But Tyler is the wetland specialist co-op position that we have with Ducks Unlimited. So he's co-funded by the agency. He's an employee of Ducks Unlimited, and he's the guy that is currently going across the state, looking at the wetland habitat we have, inventorying all the structure. We're going to create a GIS map with that. We're going to do some sort of planning for investing in wetlands to maintain that as habitat for waterfowl. So since we're at DU, since Tyler's new, he started back in May, I thought I'd introduce you. And again, just thank Ducks Unlimited for their partnership. I'm going to read a little bit about Tyler, and then if he's got a word to say, he's welcome to. If not, he doesn't have to. So Tyler is 37 years young. He grew up in hunting and fishing in Middle Tennessee. He's a former U.S. Marine. He graduated from Tennessee Tech University. And again, he began with us back in May. He has a diverse waterfowl research and management background. He began working for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the YK Delta in Alaska, a place I'd love to go visit, doing field work on spectacled eiders, Pacific brant, and cackling geese. I don't know if we've seen any of those in Tennessee ever, but he did work on them nonetheless. He then transitioned to Devil's Lake in North Dakota. He worked in the prairie pothole region, which is, of course, where we get many of our ducks here in the winter. He studied wetlands and nesting dabbling duck ecology, again, still with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. He then took a wildlife biologist position in Washington with their state Department of Fish and Wildlife. He managed Shillapoo, I think, WMA. And that's a cool wetland complex. It's right near the Columbia River and a very important wintering waterfowl area for the Pacific Flyway. He currently lives in Christiana with his 2 sons. And so, Tyler, if you have a word to say, yeah.
I just wanted to express my gratitude and my privilege to be in front of y'all today, as well as how much I look forward to continuing Ducks Unlimited's partnership with TWRA and working towards positively improving wetlands and waterfowl habitat across the state. Thank you.
What Tyler forgot to mention is he left a luggage tag for each of you on your desk. So that's from Tyler. All right. So again, this is my favorite presentation to give each year. The Wildlife Division has a robust employee recognition program. We have various different types of awards we give out for folks that contribute to our mission. They're effective. They have superior efforts, heroism, valor, those kind of things. One of the premier, if not the premier, award that we give out is a Biologist of the Year and the Technician of the Year. And so this is one, throughout the state, across the state each year. Today, I'd like to start with the staff nominees. And I just want to let folks know that these are staff that won the Technician of the Year in each region. As you see, Region 5 is headquarters there, which are the species staff and some other folks. They were nominated by their peers, and they won the regional award. So the list of technicians there, Colton Barber, Andy Lively, Jeff Womack, Chris Humphreys, and Seth Dunn, were selected by their peers, and they were the competition. They were graded and scored by their peers as well to become these nominees. So that's the pool of technicians of the year that we have for this year. I'll go ahead and show you the next slide. These are the Biologists of the Year, again selected by their peers. Rob Lewis, Stacy Stevenson, Aubrey Deck, Daryl England, and Janelle Musser. So with that, I'll start with the 2024 Wildlife Technician of the Year for the Wildlife and Forestry Division. This is Seth Dunn. I'll ask Seth to come. We'll take pictures at the break, I think, but I'll have Seth come up here. We won't put him on the spot to say anything, but he can stand up here and soak all this in. He's the elk technician at North Cumberland. You see him there with a fawn who's got her eyes covered there. Seth epitomizes what it means to be an ideal wildlife technician and a productive leader. His work ethic and attention to detail are unmatched, consistently ensuring tasks are completed properly and on time. Whether assisting with prescribed fires, making habitat boundaries, or catching elk for research, Seth goes above and beyond, often without being asked. His positive attitude, even during demanding weeks that require flexibility with nights and weekends, set him apart. Seth has mentored new agency employees, interns, and volunteers. He helps them acclimate to the WMA. North Cumberland is a big WMA. I think many of you have been there. Lots of roads. Some of the places you have to go into Kentucky to get back into Tennessee properties of the WMA. And he embodies leadership in action. His reliability and versatility have significantly boosted day-to-day productivity across the whole WMA. He has proven adaptable, shifting plans to meet the demands of the elk program, whether responding to sick or dead elk, which occur on nights and weekends and all times throughout the day, capturing calves, or assisting with habitat projects. I'll share this. This is my favorite picture of him with that smile. As the primary field leader for an elk reproductive and recruitment study, Seth has worked with contractors, landowners, hunters, and others, while also assisting with various habitat projects, vegetation sampling, and nuisance elk issues. His dedication, knowledge, and leadership make him a tremendous asset to the agency. So thank you, Seth. Congratulations, and thank you for your hard work. And we have a plaque for him. I thought I'd do the next presentation a little differently. I think you may have had some interactions with this individual at different levels. So I'll do a little quiz here. I've got some clues here. So there's the first picture of the 2024 Wildlife Biologist of the Year. I don't know if anybody can make her out there. There's 2 ladies here. One might be shielded by a ball cap there. Any ideas yet? Janelle Musser is our assistant bear program leader. She's our 2024 Wildlife Biologist of the Year. I think that's our favorite picture of her on the right, but her least favorite picture. So we had to put that in there and make sure Janelle got a good smile this year. We also, just to note, the director is in that top left position there. I think they had, maybe that was the day there was somebody from the governor's office was there. So the director's in the middle holding that bear cub. So Janelle, if you want to come up, I'm going to read through this. Janelle began her bear work in Florida, has been with us for about 3 years now as the assistant bear management coordinator. Her performance in the field exemplifies dedication, excellence, and big picture thinking. Her commitment to public education around living with bears is evident as she takes time to explain complex situations to onlookers, such as bear trapping. These efforts promote a better understanding and help prevent potential misinformation. Janelle has leaned into the challenge of overcoming traditional practices and how the agency has handled conflicts or nuisance bears. Specifically, we've moved away from short-term solutions such as extensive trapping and relocation efforts and issuing depredation permits rather quickly to now promoting education and management of attractants, pet food, garbage, etc., in those areas where those conflicts occur. Her efforts have led to a significant decrease in both bear relocations and depredation permits issued, demonstrated her impact on long-term solutions. Her focus on the welfare of bears underscores her compassionate approach, ensuring they are not left in traps too long and are treated humanely even when euthanasia is necessary. Despite the emotional toll of bear management, particularly with these euthanasias, she remains steadfast and compassionate, advocating that human-bear conflicts are a people problem, not a bear problem. Janelle's willingness to share her knowledge, mentor colleagues, and educate the public highlight her role as both a teacher and an advocate. Field staff are utilizing her expertise and bear-wise materials to help the public secure attractants for long-term solutions to these human-bear interactions and conflicts. Her tireless work and commitment to peaceful coexistence between bears and people have made a tremendous impact on the agency, bear management, and visitors and residents of Tennessee. This work has directly led to improved customer service and agency relationships with cities and citizens dealing with conflict bears. The impact of her work will be felt in bear management in Tennessee and also across the Southeast for years to come. And as our Biologist of the Year, she's also the agency's nominee for the CIAFO Biologist of the Year. So congrats, Janelle, and thank you for your tireless efforts.
Thank you, Chief Benedict. At this time, that concludes the business of the Wildlife Committee. Chairman Granbery, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wright. Hey, Joe, I had one quick question. In both those divisions where these award winners came from, how many total employees does that encompass? I just think it's interesting to know. We hear a lot about law enforcement, but how many total employees in both divisions?
So the Wildlife and Forestry Division, one division, has 162 employees.
Wow. Okay.
Sorry.
162?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I was just going to say, I appreciate Joe's quiz there at the end, but when you see the bear people in East Tennessee and West Tennessee at Ducks Unlimited headquarters, you know something's up.
Miss Mary, be sure to make sure that Commissioner Blue is checked as attending. He kind of snuck in a little late, though.
Thank you, Chairman.
All right. At this time, thank you, Commissioner Wright, for your program. I'd like to turn this over to Chair of the Fisheries, Commissioner Monty Blue.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to ask Mr. Cole to come forward at this time to speak to us about the aquatic nuisance species, coordinating to come up on the Asian carp update. And that's an accurate description of Asian carp nuisance.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Get some slides up here and then we'll get rolling. Some of this you've seen before, right? I'd like to start out these presentations with some basic information just because there's some new people around or, for any of the audience online, give us a little bit of a refresher. I'm going to focus specifically on invasive carp, though. So what are invasive carp? We refer to 4 different species in this categorization: silver carp, bighead carp, grass carp, and black carp. Grass carp, most people are familiar with. They've been used throughout the country for aquatic vegetation control in lakes and private ponds. Thankfully, in recent times, we've moved away from using grass carp that are capable of reproducing towards utilizing sterile grass carp. And that's the case throughout most of the country, although we still do have some feral grass carp populations in our systems. Black carp appear very similar to grass carp. They are a significant concern for us in Tennessee because they're molluscivores. So they eat snails, mussels, and clams. And here in Tennessee, we've got some of the most biodiverse systems, some of the highest biodiversity of mussels and clams really in the world. And a lot of those are endangered or threatened. So they're already kind of in trouble, and that just exacerbates the threat that these black carp pose. A couple of the probably more familiar ones here, silver carp and bighead carp. They're both filter feeders, feed really low on the food chain, and so they can compete with all of our native species by feeding down on just that base microscopic level of the food chain. And then the silver carp in particular, most people are familiar with because they've seen them jumping out of the water, whether it's been in person or on YouTube, jumping into a boat, landing on fishing gear, hitting people. So they pose a significant safety threat there. How'd they get here? They were brought in for various aquaculture purposes in the past and escaped the captivity or were released in various areas. They made their way into the Mississippi River, where they've been able to successfully reproduce and have since spread throughout much of the Mississippi River, particularly into Tennessee waters through the use of navigation locks at our locks and dams. This is just a map kind of depicting where the carp populations are, specifically silver carp for this map. Over on the Mississippi River and the Ohio River, we've got relatively high populations where there's pretty regular reproduction occurring. Into Tennessee, in both Kentucky Lake and Barkley on the Tennessee and Cumberland Rivers, we've got moderate to high populations there with inconsistent recruitment. We haven't seen, and I'll talk more about this in just a little bit, but we haven't seen any successful recruitment in the Tennessee or Cumberland Rivers since at least 2015. And that was the last time we saw kind of a boom of very small invasive carp, silver carp at that time. Moving further upstream in each system into Cheatham Reservoir on the Cumberland and Pickwick on the Tennessee River, there are carp populations present there in moderate numbers. Beyond that, in Old Hickory and Wilson Reservoir, we categorize those populations as low, with just a few collections or sightings each year, seems to be. And then we've got a few X's on the screen here, where those represent just individual reports or just very few individual collections. So like maybe a commercial fisherman captured a fish in Wheeler. We had a sighting in Chickamauga reported several years back in 2020. So that's kind of what those red X's represent. It's basically where we don't go out and collect them regardless of how much effort we put into the water there. So some project level updates here. We conduct early life stage monitoring. This is the work we do to look for recruitment in the Tennessee and the Cumberland Rivers. We work with universities on this, UT Martin and Tennessee Tech University, to do some of those field collections and to analyze some of the DNA from the samples that we collect, because a lot of the times the samples we collect from this larval monitoring are like what you see out in the upper right of the screen there, very small, microscopic fish. So it's very difficult to visually ID them. So we start with a genetic component, and then if we need to dig in any further beyond that, we'll get the microscopes out and try to do some visual identification. But the key thing here is with multiple years of this monitoring, we've not documented successful recruitment within the Tennessee and Cumberland rivers. So that's telling us that our populations are driven by this migration that happens where they're coming in from the Mississippi and Ohio River through those navigation locks. We've also got ongoing surveillance in the upper Tennessee River system. Each summer since 2020, we've been out electrofishing below Nickajack, Chickamauga, Watts Bar, Fort Loudon, and Melton Hill dams. This past summer, crews put in 41 hours of electrofishing effort and detected no silver carp during that time. That is in addition to a whole lot of other sampling that also goes on in that area that I like to remind folks of. We've got, targeted sport fish electrofishing, bass electrofishing going on this spring. We do a lot of trap netting and other sorts of work like that. Community sampling in the fall, gill netting for walleyes. We've got commercial fishermen on the water that are submitting reports. We've got creel clerks out on the water. The list goes on. We've got a lot of eyes, a lot of time out on the water in this area with no reports of silver carp in that section of the river. So that's good news. We've continued to implement the movement studies and telemetry work that we've partnered with Tennessee Tech and the USGS on. Each year we implant about 200 to 250 silver carp across the Tennessee, Cumberland, and Reelfoot with acoustic transmitters. It's about the size of a little larger than a AA battery there. And that emits a signal. We've got receivers throughout portions of the Tennessee and Cumberland rivers and over in Reelfoot. And so that once these fish are implanted with a receiver, or with a tag, we know where they go as long as they swim by a receiver. And so that's given us really valuable information on how often they're passing a dam. So we're using that with a lot of the modeling that we've got going on right now to try and figure out how to best tackle these populations. And then we're doing just general population characteristics sampling, trying to keep tabs on roughly what our populations are doing. Are they increasing? Are they decreasing? We work on that with direct sampling efforts like gill netting, electrofishing, dozer trawls. And then we partner with groups like the Fish and Wildlife Service. That picture there on the left is what's called a electrified Popier trawl. And that's a large boat that takes about 4 people to staff. They put these big butterfly trawl wings out into the water and electrify it and just start driving along. And, they'll do about a 5-minute transect. And typically, as has been the case for the past about 3 or 4 years here, we see a lot of shad. So it's nighttime work wading through buckets and tubs of shad. And really that's a good sign. It means we've got a pretty good prey base going there on Kentucky Lake. And, the work that we've been doing for this population characteristics work hasn't shown any increases in our populations. We've had a leveling off or a slight decline for how many fish are out there in terms of carp, that is. A more recent study I wanted to highlight. I don't have a whole lot of numbers to share with you here. I hope to be able to dig in a little bit more on this in coming years. It's a multi-year project. We're doing an exploitation study using high reward tags on Kentucky and Barkley. We're doing that in partnership with Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife. And this past spring, we put 1,880 silver carp back into the water with high reward tags. And the idea here is that they're at large. They are vulnerable to commercial fishing or other harvest. And so as commercial fishing progresses throughout the year and we get returns on these tags, the fishermen will harvest them, call them in to receive the reward, we get a better idea of the impact of harvest on the populations. And so we're gonna keep working on that project. So far, we've received about, I think, 74 returns since the fish were tagged. We hope that number goes up, but it's early. It's been less than a year so far, and we are learning a lot about some of the movement patterns of the fish. So actually 20 of the fish that have been returned were actually captured downstream of Kentucky and Barkley Lakes. They went through the dams out into the Ohio River and were captured outside of the systems. So that's kind of interesting, and there's a lot more to dig into there. I'm going to shift over to kind of a general prevention and control strategy. You probably heard me say, commissioners, that we've got two primary tools to impact carp populations. Those are removal and deterrence. And so this is just a little update on the removal and deterrence. Our removal program, Tennessee Carp Harvest Incentive Program, has hit the 35 million pound mark. That's how many pounds have been removed since the program was started back in September of 2018, with more than 7.8 million pounds harvested during the last fiscal year. The whole idea here is that we're trying to incentivize removal of fish. The more fish we can get out of the system, the less likely fish are to keep moving upstream. And then we've also opened up an opportunity on the lower Mississippi River, and that's a part of a larger partnership with other states like Arkansas, Missouri, Kentucky, to allow and incentivize harvest from the Mississippi River as well, because that Mississippi River is kind of the source of all of our carp issues. We've also been able to supply some additional incentive recently. We had a order of webbing come in, and we've been able to distribute that to some of the fishermen that fish as part of the program, just to help cover some of the cost of webbing, which is one of the expensive and consumable sorts of materials. They go through a lot of webbing as they catch fish. In terms of deterrence, just a quick update on the bioacoustic fish fence placed at Barkley Lock. That is currently operating on a 100% on cycle. So I think the last time we had an update, we were just finishing up some of the testing phase. During the testing phase, that was being operated in a 50-50 on-off sort of scenario to be able to differentiate how things changed from when it was on versus when it was off. The Tennessee Cumberland River Carp Partnership has continued to support that. It's left that testing phase now and is 100% on. A more recent development here, I've also talked about the Water Resources Development Act of 2020 in the past. That's a piece of federal legislation that we're very interested in. That federal legislation authorized the Army Corps of Engineers to implement an invasive carp prevention and control pilot program under a Section 509 of the Act. That is something that we've been working with our other state and federal partners closely with to provide information to the Corps. We've done a lot of work to prioritize the locations where we'd like to see deterrence placed. But ultimately, it is a Corps program. And some unfortunate news, currently that program is paused due to a lapse in authorization. So the Army Corps got direction from their general counsel's office at the Assistant Secretary of the Army, and they said, pencils down. And so thankfully, though, silver lining is not all is lost, right? Not all the work that we've done towards this goes away. We are communicating with folks that we need to be talking with about hopefully getting this authorization extended. And then once there's a new authorization, we'll be able to pick work back up on this. But until more developments there, that program is paused. And then the last slide I have here, thing I wanted to highlight was just how our funding has changed over the course of the last several years. We started out in FY16 with relatively low funding. And this is all federal funding that we receive or apply for and for grants from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. In 2020, that funding level was increased. And then since that time, it's been relatively stable, somewhere between $25 and $31 million that goes to the Fish and Wildlife Service. We, as Tennessee Wildlife, apply for portions of that within our partnerships. And this is what we've received in recent years, with the green bars on the bottom being more of the management and research component of what we do, and then the orange portion of the bars on top being what funds our incentive programs. So for FY24, we will receive a grant for almost $3.3 million. And of that, a little more than 2/3 is directed towards our incentive and removal programs. And I'll be happy to take any questions.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Sam.
Commissioner Blue's not the only one's had the privilege of experiencing some of the electrofishing. This past spring, I had the honor of working with Bones and his crew on the Duck River, just below the Columbia Dam, to evaluate the presence of invasive species of carp. We probably captured majority of silvers, a few blacks, and a lot of grass carp. And so if you've never experienced that operation, it's unique in and of itself. And I spent about 4 hours with the crew. And so I just wanted to mention that our agency and our staff does an outstanding job of continually monitoring that and addressing the issues and the problems. We did catch a few smallies, so we know that they're in there. And so eradication of those invasive species to help our game fish. So it's important that we continue that operation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Any other questions? Chairman, Commissioner Cox.
Cole, the barrier study's been going on for seemed like 10 years. What is there, when are we going to get results, and when are they going to move from where they are to implementation? Do you have any idea?
So we do have some results from the Fish and Wildlife Service on the effectiveness of the BAF specifically, right, at Barkley. It's about 50 to 55% effective is what they came up with from that study. There are things that can be done, we believe, to improve that efficiency, and I think some of those things have already been implemented now. But they didn't do a whole lot of changing any of the variables during the study. So there's alterations that can be made to the sound. There's activities like removal below the dams that can happen that will help too. And so Kentucky's doing a lot of those removals through an experimental gears program right now. It's being implemented. Is what I would say. It's out of the test phase. It's in full implementation phase now. We would like to get to the point where it's no longer supported funding from a funding standpoint by the Carp partnerships and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. We would like to see that go under that Army Corps Section 509 program.
So when you say it's being implemented, does that mean that they are going to pick another dam to install, or 2 or 3?
So that falls under that WRDA piece, where we're doing our best to try and, we've given priority locations to the Corps. It has to be a federal program because they're on federal sites. Until the Corps gets another authorization, we're kind of at a standstill. But the intent here is that that program would lead to the installation and testing of barriers at additional sites.
So Director, if the Corps shut that down, is that something that we could politically try to influence with some of our folks in Washington, or have you already done that?
Actually, this group has been working with the folks in Washington. It's going to be a federal deal where they have to wave their wand to be able to make that happen. But they've been working with some of our federal partners and some congressmen up there to try to push that forward.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Cole, follow up on Commissioner Cox and the director's comment. Just for the record, what are these barriers cost? My recollection is like 10 million per. Is that a correct number?
You're pretty close at an estimate for some of them. There's so many variables depending on what kind it is, where it goes. That's, site specific things. The bath, similar to what's in place there at Barkley, we suspect that's $7 to $8 million per deterrent, and that's not going down. So
this really has to be a federal program based on the sheer cost.
it does. There is some language within that federal language that requires a certain amount of sponsorship, non-federal sponsorship. So the Corps will look for a partner in that might pick up, that's expected to pick up 25%.
Right.
But, it's
Still a big number.
still a big number.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Any other questions from fisheries or the commission as a whole? Seeing none, Cole, I would just like to say thank you for the presentation. Number one, y'all do great work. I've had the privilege to be out and work with you all on several occasions. I would love to go up and see this barrier maybe sometime in February, if that opportunity would present itself, February or March, somewhere time in there. I would love to see it. It may not be a lot to see. I know it's all underwater, I guess.
I can reach out to Kentucky and see what I can get lined up.
Yeah.
I think that'd be an interesting trip up there, and we may be able to tag into some of the removals that they have going on downstream of the dam as well.
Absolutely. Last question from me, Cole. What about how much, I know the guys, I see the guys in Henry County at the gas stations, gassing their boats up. They're rolling still right now. Our commercial fishermen doing Asian carp removal from Barkley and Kentucky Lake regularly. But how much, what percentage are they going down to the Mississippi to incentivize, I guess, their harvest numbers or whatever? Or I think the numbers are down a little bit, are they not, as far as from the commercial fishermen?
Well, our
Just
harvest,
because I think they're making progress.
well, our harvest, I do believe that there's progress being made. I think
Right.
that we're hearing that from a lot of the anglers. They're not seeing as many while they're out on the water. They're
Right.
not having to deal with it as much. So
I think
That's
used to
good.
an average catch would, 8 to 12,000 pounds a night. And now it's down to, significantly lower, but because the program's working.
And so we've got that component established on the Mississippi River. It's the contract is in place. They're able to go out and harvest fish there and receive an incentive. There hasn't been a whole lot of that going on yet. I think only about 22,000 pounds, I think was the number.
Off the Mississippi.
Off the Mississippi, yeah. But we do expect that number will get higher, as we continue to encourage that opportunity, and as the cooler months progress here, that'll offer better opportunities because the transportation and stuff is limited down there.
Sure. Yeah. Cole, thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Chairman, I think they're running up to the dam to look at that Saturday morning. You could catch that trip.
This coming Saturday morning. We'll talk at dinner. I said February. I'm going to turn it back over to Chairman.
I thought somebody volunteering Commissioner Blue to try to swim through that dam to see if it really worked, and it would
Yeah.
really shock him and hold him back.
Well, I've probably done worse.
Thank you, Commissioner Blue. This time I'd like to turn it over to Commissioner Tommy Woods, Chair of the Boating and Law Enforcement Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will ask Lieutenant
Colonel Matt Majors to come to the podium for a preview of a rulemaking that we'll hear in January.
Thank you, Commissioners. So every 3 years, the Coast Guard comes and sits down with us and does a very thorough desk review on our education and enforcement efforts to make sure we're keeping up with our end of the bargain. We were very lucky this last time. They only found a couple little things that needed to be changed or updated. And so that's why I'm here. Really, the changes we're making are very insignificant. They're just word changes, and I had a lot of help from Daniel in the legal division. He may have stepped out, but he almost pulled his hair out working with me on this, but I think we have it where we need to. The first amendment that we've got is for personal flotation devices. The new flotation devices that are being manufactured historically have said type 1 through 5, and that did cause some confusion. People didn't know which kind they needed or what they were used for. So now they're changing it up to be a little more straightforward, whether it's a adult, a child, whether it's wearable, throwable, and then how much buoyancy it has in there. So just changing the labels, and the Coast Guard wanted us to be able to reflect that in our rule and regulation. So we have added that. We will still accept the type 1 through 5 that our boaters, our hunters, and fishermen have when we inspect them. But these are the new ones that we've gone ahead and added into that law. The second part is just for fire extinguishers. There was additional new language in the U.S. Code of Regulations, or excuse me, the Code of Federal Regulations. So we had to be in compliance with that. So we did some word changes, and ultimately it just changes a few of the words to reflect some of the new language on these fire extinguishers. And our wording was just a little bit outdated. So we will have you all a copy of these changes and to look at those as they apply to the old one. But again, it's not going to affect the boaters. It's not going to affect our hunters and fishermen in the field. It's just more language updates is really what we're doing to come in compliance with a corrective action plan with the U.S. Coast Guard. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions from committee members? Any questions from the full commission? All right, thank you, Matt. Mr. Chairman, that completes the business of the Boating and Law Enforcement Committee.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Commissioner Wood. And at this time, we'll take a 15-minute break before we get into the budget presentation. Everybody take your seat. We'll get started. All right, welcome back. I'd now like to recognize Commissioner Bill Cox, Chair of the Budget Committee.
Chairman, I would like to ask that Deputy Director, let's see, is he first? Oh, Ken Tarkington. No, Jeff Henegar. Jason Henegar, I'm sorry. I won't skip down too far. Give us a budget expansion for fisheries, or budget report on fisheries.
Thank you, Chairman Cox. Thank you, Commission, for allowing us to bring the request for budget expansion for Fisheries Division. Back in October, we received our grant, or our apportionment for the invasive carp funding. Cole covered that a little bit earlier, at $3.2 million. And we've got a couple expansions that are related to that. So we're going to have two expansions. We have one for FY25 for $505,000. And that money covers our population monitoring and our research. That'll be for 1 year, and it's 100% federal funds from U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And then we have a budget expansion for FY26 of $763,000. And that covers our Lower Mississippi River Incentive Program for FY26. That'll also be for 1 year, 100% federal funding. That's all I have.
Any committee members have questions? Full commission, anybody have any questions? From the committee, I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve is presented.
Need a second.
Second.
Got a motion second. Any further discussion? All in favor on the committee, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Chairman.
Ken Tarkington.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to present the condition of the operating funds, both the boating and wildlife funds. And the first slide identifies the boating the boating fund. Registration revenues thus far this point in time of this year, based on the projection, is right about where we had forecasted, 10,000 plus. On the expense side, we're not quite 20% expended for the year. The next slide is the wildlife slide. And the license income is just shy of $2 million of an increase at this point in time through the year. And we're almost at 21% expense to the total of the annual budget for FY25. The next slide is the Wetlands Acquisition Fund, and there's approximately $24,900,000 balance in it. And then the last slide we have identifies the Treasury invested funds and the remaining that's in the SPIF, or the generally invested funds by the Treasury. And the SPIF funds currently, or through October, was earning 4.94%. Any questions or comments?
Question from the committee. Full commission. Ken, are the bond accounts, or the bond investments Treasurer's got there, we're back in the black on those?
We were the previous month. And then last month they went down again. But in total we would be, but if you notice the last two, the wildlife and the boating funds, or excuse me, the wildlife fund is just almost break even, 0.28% negative.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Next, we will have Deputy Director Francis Fish.
That's not fair.
That's hard.
harsh. All right. Is this red is on? You got me? Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, commissioners, public. I'm here to give a recap of the presentation that I gave back in September about licenses, our requested increase. I want to go through the schedule to bring you all up to speed on where we're at. So again, it was the last commission meeting that I gave a preview, a real high level. Welcome, Commissioner Saltzman.
You're doing a great
Thank you. And that was just a high level to give the public full awareness that we were working on this. And then by October 14th, we filed the rules for public notice. And that's the legal process where we put all the details so the public could see it. And they had an opportunity to go through form stack to give formal comments. That deadline was November 30th, and we received 190 comments in that period, as well as some other letters that came to various commissioners. But through that specific format, we got 190. So today, I'll be recapping again with more details, and then tomorrow will be a formal rulemaking hearing where our Fish and Wildlife Commission will vote. But that won't be the end of it. We will also have to prepare these documents to be filed with the Secretary of State, showing the Commission's vote. And then we will be scheduled for a review by the Joint Government Ops Committee at the legislature sometime in June. And any changes that come of these proceedings wouldn't be in effect till July 1 of 2025. And I want to I didn't cover this last time. I think it's important for everyone to understand how important license and boating registration is to the function of our agency. We're set up to run on license revenue. That big blue piece of that pie, there's about 43% of our anticipated budget for 2026. And all the federal grants that we get, that other 30%, that we get those dollars because we sell those licenses. We wouldn't get them otherwise. And the remaining funds they're important. They're all important to us, but you see the real estate and fuel transfer taxes is another 11. And then you see the reserves there. Director Tarkington just mentioned our reserve levels for the wildlife fund and boating fund. The fact that we have to use reserves to get through next year kind of highlights the issue that we have. We're running a deficit on our spending each year, and that is compounding and growing with interest rates as we go forward, or not interest rates, but increases in cost. So why are we considering license fees at this time? We have not changed the price of the majority of our licenses and fees since 2015. That's going on 10 years. In that time, we've all experienced inflation of 31% in our day-to-day stuff. That the agency's no different. We purchase a lot of goods and services, and the buying power of that dollar we had in 2015 is worth about 76 cents today. And that's July of this past year. I don't know where we're at today. Our boating registration fees have not increased since 2019. So that's a 22% increase of inflation that we're experiencing on all those projects. And up to this point, we've been struggling to provide the services that we do. We haven't shut down any major programs. We have reduced some, we've not filled some positions that we traditionally would. We're holding and waiting to see how we can go. But we still, even at that, we continue to spend more than we collect, given the environment of what everything costs. I mean, we probably would have been here at this point where we needed an increase a lot sooner if it hadn't been for COVID. We experienced a boom in outdoor recreation, which I know y'all experienced too. And that allowed us to carry a few years. But then the bad side of COVID was that's when all that supply-induced inflation hit us too. So we're still feeling those higher prices since that time. So that's why we're here, and we need to increase our fees. Here's some examples of the fees, the prices that we experience. These estimates are off of our own purchase records from 2016 compared to 2024. You see the kinds of things that we buy: trucks, boats, fish food, gravel. We buy lots of gravel. Herbicides went way up, and payroll went up. We had just a lot of overhead costs that we had no control over, including payroll, because that request was a statewide restructure of our positions. You'll notice that all of those values are over 27%. So our objective as a group, when we looked at our license structure, was to move the costs up, and with a goal of having about a 28% increase in total revenue after as a product of those changes on the hunting and fishing side. On the boating side, we did a flat 22% increase. But while we were at it, we wanted to take the opportunity to simplify our regulations. And what I mean by that is try to reduce the number of things you got to buy to go do stuff, and have a very similar structure, whether you're a resident or non-resident. So if we have a license type, there'd be a resident and non-resident option of the same, instead of having some yet other confusing thing for that person to buy. So we didn't, I don't think we're 100% there, but we've made a lot of ground in this. So here's how we address the fees. Again, we adjusted nearly all the fees, and with a targeted increase of 28%. We had a huge spreadsheet where we changed the numbers within most of our fee increases varied between 27 and 30% range. A lot of times depending on where that rounded up dollar landed. As an example, our current resident annual hunt fish combo it went up to $42, which represented a 27% increase. We chose to not apply that 27% to the sportsman's license. That's the one that people buy that are 16 through 64, I guess. We chose to only increase that one by 12%. And that's a kind of a keystone license for us, in that there are state laws that reference that license to tell us what we can do with our lifetime licenses. And because of that 12% decision on the sportsman's license, that was also applied to all the eligible lifetime sportsman's licenses. So I've got the next few slides. I'm just going to go over some various topics that are kind of anomalies to what I just said we did. One, for example, the real foot preservation permit had not been increased since 2005. So that's 59% behind on consumer price index. And so that resulted in the changes that you see there. We're going to go to $5 for the 1 day and $25 for the annual. We increased the migratory bird permit that's required for, say, duck hunting or dove hunting from $1 to $2. This isn't a revenue making decision, or this is more driven by our federal grant side. If we show someone participating that purchased a license to hunt at a minimum of $2, we can count that person as a hunter, and that can translate into as much as like $34 in federal grant in their calculations. So that's a strategic move on our part to bring in more federal dollars to put more wildlife conservation and opportunity on the ground. The commission added a night hunting season for coyote and bobcat last year, and it's already ongoing, but we were adding a permit for that. This is the first time we've shared these numbers. The resident fee is going to be $21, non-resident $42. And we made no changes to any of the resident disability licenses, such as the disabled, veteran, mentally challenged fishing licensors, all those permanent licenses that are typically $5 or $10. We chose to not change any of those. And lastly, there's no changes to permits at TWRA lakes. I'll go into why later on those. But here's a big change that we made on the on big game. So we had currently, if you were a resident and you were going to go hunt for deer, you would buy the annual hunt fish combo, and you would buy either a gun, archery, or muzzle loader, depending on your manner of hunting, or you could just buy the sportsman's license. So with the new system, and this system, based on the calls that we get from every year from the public, does create some confusion because other states do it based on a species permit system. And that's what we're going to move to. So that person would now buy their hunt fish combo, and they would just buy a deer permit. And that would allow them to hunt for deer for all those seasons. Now, the seasons are still intact. There's still going to be a gun season, archery season, muzzleloader seasons, but you would only need to buy that deer permit. If you happen to hunt in all of those seasons, you'd still only have to buy that one permit. And of course, you'd still be able to buy your annual sportsman and eliminate all the different purchases. Here are the dollar amounts that go with that. We'll be getting in a lot more of the dollar amounts as we go through this presentation and what I have for you tomorrow. For the non-resident big game hunter, currently they need to buy an annual or a 7-day annual or 7-day all game license. Again, trying to keep symmetry between what the residents and non-residents do. They again would have to buy a hunt fish combo and then buy the deer, turkey, elk, or bear, depending on what they're hunting for. Or they could now buy a non-resident annual sportsman, which is a new license that we're offering for non-residents. There are the dollar amounts on those. Other changes in the fish world, we've removed the current requirement for a trout supplemental license for residents. This has been something that we've had for decades. At this point in our fisheries management and the hatcheries that we have, we're spending every bit as much and then some on our warm water facilities compared to our trout facilities. So there's really no reason to have a supplemental for trout. It might make sense to add one for the warm water, but we chose to get rid of the trout to help simplify the license structure and collect that revenue elsewhere in fishing licenses. This will also simplify the options for our visitors from other states. So currently they have to pick between 6 licenses, and when you're from another state and you're wondering what it means to fish for all fish, that is a source of confusion. This trout, no trout thing. It will be a lot easier for people to get here and just buy a 1-day fishing license, 7-day license, or annual license and be able to fish for whatever they want, whatever critter swims that they encounter. Another cleanup area revolves around the WMA permits. We eliminated 5 WMA permits and replaced it with 1 WMA permit, single WMA permit. And again, it comes in a resident and non-resident form. And also as I mentioned earlier, we have an annual hunt fish for residents, so now we'll have one for non-residents. We'll also offer the 7-day for non-residents. We're offering all 3 of our sportsman's licenses as an option for non-residents, youth, regular adult or senior. We've added a non-resident waterfowl supplemental license, just like we would have our residents buy. And we've added a new permit for both residents and non-residents. That's the Teleco-Citico permit. This is where we have a really intensive trout stocking program. We still feel the need to keep charging for that, but a lot of people go enough of the times of the year that would be as a convenience to them. We're allowed to buy an annual permit if they choose. We have relative to the other licenses that we sell, the taxidermist and commercial buyers, there's very few of them, And so we've just combined, and there's a lot of overlap in those two areas. So we've combined those two licenses into one taxidermist commercial fur buyer. And the last one on this list is a field trial permit. This is a permit that if you are a field trial organizer for dog field trials at the few WMAs where we allow that, you can, or where this permit's required, this is the permit you would buy for one permit for the whole event. But now all the people that participate in the event also have to have their WMA permit individually. And you see on the right there, we've upgraded the license privileges to the youth sportsman license. So there won't be a youth license or junior license that we have. It will be a full sportsman's license that those 13 to 15-year-olds will have. They won't have to pay for application fees or other odds and ends that they were paying for before. And this will be available again in resident and non-resident. So I hope you'll see that we've made a lot of accommodations to keep things simpler. And these are the numbers here in front of you that were in the rule that was filed on October 14th. I'm going to present them now just for the record so people can see them. Generally, I'll try to say what we've done on each slide. These are generally that 27 to 30% increase across the board on these. These are the new supplemental licenses. We settled on $42 for all of those for consistency. There was no need to change the South Holston supplemental annual. That's one where we share, we swap license dollars with the state of Virginia, and there was no need to adjust that basically that money we collect goes to Virginia. And they weren't ready to increase it. Here are the changes to the sportsman's license. Again, we only went up 12% on the sportsman annual. We did go up the 27 to 30% on the youth and senior. And in the rule that was filed, we said we wanted to charge $80 for the senior sportsman annual, and that was incorrect. I don't know where that came from. We didn't model any of our projections based on that. We had intended to do $64 all along. So we would ask that the commission amend that if as this rule is approved or not. Again, we did not change any of the resident, the permanent resident licenses that are sold for intellectually disabled. If you're certified physical or mentally disabled, you can see them here. No changes to those. And as I mentioned, this is a 12% increase because it's linked to what we did on the sportsman license. The lifetime licenses went up 12%. And here are some of the new non-resident licenses that we've offered. I show that annual fishing is combined because technically you could buy all fish annually before. I don't really know how to categorize that, but basically they're mostly new licenses as the way they're labeled anyway. And the trapping annual went up 28%. Again, mirroring what we have on the residents, here's the non-resident supplemental licenses. And here's the non-resident sportsman licenses. And again, these are new licenses. Okay, here is all of the fees that we charge through our boating law, and the numbers that you see on the screen here reflect the 22% increase. I didn't show the before and after because it was just across the board that we did these. There wasn't there weren't any exceptions. And we didn't change any other requirements or anything like that in the boating registration world. We just kept it like it was and increased the values. We also added a new license for the North Cumberland WMA OHV users. And this is an important change for everyone involved. It will allow us to have dedicated funding. When we went to talk to our staff that work at North Cumberland, some of the commissioners visited there earlier this year. It was pretty clear that they did not have the funding that they needed to maintain and just keep up with what's going on there, let alone make improvements. So we did a study this last year to estimate the use, how many people are there, how many times do those people use the facility or the WMA, where do they come from, a lot of user information. And we use those data to develop our fee structure that I'll present here in a minute, with a minimum estimate of trying to collect a little over $3 million. And that there's a lot of work to be done there. Currently, we are funding work there through our wildlife fund, and in total, roughly there's about $1.2 million that we spend there each year, or we have budgeted this year. And we could do way better and need to do better there. We need much more funding to keep that going. So something that'll be good about this is there'll be no exemptions for the hunting license. So when these permits are purchased, we'll know how many are there. We will know what we collected, and we will be able to base future improvements on the OHV areas on those dollars. Now, that doesn't mean we won't do other wildlife-related work on the area that will have indirect benefits to OHV users. That'll continue, but we need to have a dedicated funding source for things that are directly used for OHV. The way this will be structured is we're only requiring one permit per vehicle, not one for everybody in the vehicle, and it would only be one adult that would need to have it that's 16 years or older. That's kind of where we do our breakdown between youth and adult for our license structure. And that doesn't mean you have to have an adult in the vehicle. I don't really know how that works. I guess you could have two 16 or 15-year-olds riding. Nobody would need a permit in that case. There is no youth requirement with this fee structure that we've proposed. Here are the dollar amounts that we've proposed: daily, annual for the regular rider, and that guide annual would be someone that's guiding people for money to ride around. The Sportsman OHV supplemental would be a supplemental license that would be available to anyone with a sportsman's license, resident or non-resident, and it would be $40. And that piece we'd be able to track as well in what we would have an OHV fund going forward as we go on this. So with that, let me see. As I mentioned, we did receive 190 public comments that we've looked at, shared with the commission, analyzed, summarized. It's no surprise when you're doing a proposal to increase fees that generally people don't want to have their fees increased. We get that, but overwhelmingly, people that are working or recreating on the Cumberland WMA did not want those fees increased. So we got that message loud and clear. We got general support for simplifying or reducing the number of required permits. I think everyone wants things easier. We see that. Yet we still had mixed comments on switching to species permits rather than archery, muzzleloader, or gun permits. We still think that's the best move for us going forward, to go to species permits. And we had general support for the elimination of the trout supplemental license. And I'm sure we'll hear more comments tomorrow during the hearing. Of course, any comments that are heard tomorrow during the hearing are a record of that rule. And General Counsel can correct me if I'm wrong. And if we're going to hear comments today, they would not be in that record, but doesn't mean we don't. That'd be up to the commission what comments we hear today. But that is the last you'll hear from me, though. I'm done. If you have any questions, commissioners, let me know before I ramble here.
I've got a question or two. On the OHV youth, I believe you said a 15-year-old or younger may drive an OHV without a permit?
The way that we set up the rule, they would not be required to have one. I'm going to need someone from law enforcement to say who can drive or can't drive them. I think it's like a boat. They're drive them. Anyone know?
Basically, one person on the machine, if there's an adult, would have to have it. But if there's just two youth on there, they would not have to have it.
Isn't that machine doing the same damage to the trails that the other machines are doing?
Yes, sir, it is.
And why are we doing that?
That request, we looked at the other parks. That was one of the things that we were asked to do, was look at what ages that they were using at some of the private parks. And so we did that based on what the other parks were doing.
All right, I got one more question. You may have to go back, but there's a non-resident annual senior sportsman's license that I think you said if there was $131.
Yep.
So a non-resident senior can buy a sportsman's license for what our residents paying $185 for.
As a senior, they can. Not, our residents are not seniors yet.
Okay. I understand what you're saying.
Yep.
But there's still the fact.
It is cheaper for a non-resident senior than a middle-aged adult as a resident. Yeah.
Are there any questions from the committee or from the full commission? Mr. Chairman.
Frank, on the sportsman's license that we only went up 12%, 165 to 185, there are a lot of exemptions by having the sportsman's license. You really did touch on that.
Well, yeah, the sportsman's license will still carry all the privileges it currently has, in that you wouldn't have to pay, you wouldn't have to buy the individual species permits, you wouldn't have to buy agency lake permits, you wouldn't have to pay for application fees. There's no change in the privilege that comes with a sportsman license. It's just the price changes.
I was just trying to point out.
It's a good deal.
And for example, the new coyote night hunting, you wouldn't have to buy the coyote permit because you already got that under the sportsman, whether it's an annual sportsman or a lifetime sportsman. They're one and the same.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Is there going to be an option for the off-highway vehicle permit for the North Cumberland WMA for a 7-day or shorter period in between the 1 day and the annual?
Not as we propose in the rule. We have 1 day annual and a guide license.
When we vote on these, do you vote all, or you're gonna have to explain to me because I'm new to the commission. So when we vote on these various things, do you vote them all up and down, or do you break it down and we vote on different components?
It'll be a discussion tomorrow is on the rule, and amendments may be presented during that discussion.
Okay.
Commissioner Little, if you'll check, all the commissioners check your email. Deputy Counsel Grimes sent out an email explaining the process for tomorrow, 4 amendments.
Yeah, generally the presentation today before rule is just extra information, maybe give time to digest this. So, because it'll be a lot again tomorrow. Actually, there'll be more tomorrow. I'm going to share all of the figures tomorrow. I didn't cover any of the miscellaneous fees for all the like commercial fees, Raptor fees, and all that. I'll share all that. It'll be a full download of the rules tomorrow.
If there are no other questions, Mr. Chairman, that's all for the Budget Committee.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Cox and Deputy Director Fish. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have a question? Commissioner Saltzman, do you have a question? I'm good. Well, thank you, Frank, for all your hard work, and Chairman Cox, thank you for your hard work. And at this time, I have a list of 8 people who would like to speak, and I'll call you out for order. If you'll notice on the board, there's a countdown clock, and I think it's 3 minutes. And so please limit your comments to the subject at hand. And at this time, I'd like to call Justin Jones to the microphone, please. Identify yourself when you get to the phone, please.
I'll try to read fast. My name's Justin Jones. I'm the owner of Ride Royal Blue Campground in Campbell County, Tennessee. First, I'd like to say thank you for all that the TWRA does for the land and wildlife management in Tennessee, and also for allowing us to be here today. I'd also like to say thank you that this year's OHV proposal is a big improvement over last year's, but we still have some concerns with this most recent proposal. One of the biggest concerns is the annual permit hike. Non-residents can currently pay $130 for the annual combo permit, but with the proposed changes, this would increase to obviously $500, which would be a 285% increase. And it's a 277% increase for the resident annual change. These dramatic increases may lead many riders to either reduce their visits or stop coming altogether, resulting in a loss of business and lower revenue for the TWRA as well as local businesses. Additionally, the removal of the 7-day permit could negatively impact multi-day stays. Under the current system, non-residents can ride for 7 days for $81. Under the most recent proposal, these visitors would be required to buy 7 daily permits at $50 each, which would be $350 as compared to $81, which would represent a 332% increase. We understand that these price increases are intended to help the TWRA cover OHV program costs. However, due to years of OHV permit revenue going into a general fund instead of an OHV specific fund, the TWRA lacks accurate data on how much revenue the program currently generates. Executive Director Maxidon and his legal team took an important step in self-reporting this issue, and we applaud them for doing so. But it also raises questions about missed opportunities over the years. Could the trails have been better maintained, or the trail system even have been expanded if funds had been dedicated to OHV all along? Many of us in the riding community believe the most balanced approach would be to introduce a dedicated OHV permit, like we just saw, without a major price increase initially, allowing the TWRA to gather real data on revenue. Surveys such as the one that was conducted this year by the University of Tennessee can be helpful, but may not fully capture the unique visitation patterns at the North Cumberland WMA. We're also concerned about the economic context. Our campground occupancy this year has dropped over 15% already, and some of our competitors say they're down as much as 70%, impacted by the recent alcohol ban as well as broader economic trends. Raising permit prices during an economic slowdown could compound these challenges, affecting both local businesses and TWRA revenue. In summary, I'd like to respectfully request that the TWRA adopt the pricing recommendations made by Cora, which reflect a more moderate increase and preserve some of the options that riders currently have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Sheila Westray.
Hey, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Not to get too deep into it, but we're going to have a discussion after. Are these all OHV comments?
I'm not sure.
I appreciate Justin coming down. I've got a few questions I'd like to, if that's possible. I don't know. I know it's not a Q&A time, but I may have missed this early. I'd like to ask him a question. Yeah. I had to wait till you sat down first. So you own the campground?
Ride Royal Blue ATV Resort. Yes,
and
sir.
so let me ask you a question. How many ATVs you got?
Well, we have anywhere from 2,500 to 3,000 reservations per year.
Okay.
Our cabins range from 1 bedroom up to 5 bedroom. You know, so we could have in one reservation can represent anywhere from 2 OHVs to 10 or 15.
Yeah, it's like whatever they got.
Yeah.
And then, so you're running, let me rephrase, you're running about 3,000
reservations per
year.
Yes, sir.
And how much are you charging folks to do that? To Brendan, I am never done this before. I'm coming to your town, want to do this for the first time. I'm calling you and say, set me up. What do I need?
Our cabins range in price anywhere from $85 a night up to $500-600 a night, depending on the cabin. And we also have RV sites as well.
Yeah.
That are anywhere from $50 to $65 a night.
And they're very nice, by the way. I know where you're at. So
Oh,
I'm asking questions I know some of the answers to. But and then how much to rent one of your ATVs or side by sides?
Yeah, so we have Polaris Razor rentals. A 4-seater is $500 per day for 8 hours, and a 2-seater is $450. If you're a guest at our resort, you get a discount on those prices.
Right. And right now you pay $500 per vehicle. And right now the OHV permit is,
The most popularly sold
Yeah.
permit at our campground is most of our customers are non-residents.
right.
The 7-day combo permit is what we see sold the most.
And
We have computers set up in our store where our customers buy them right there. And
Yeah.
it's a 7-day for $81.
And then you think most of these guys are coming for a week's vacation or a weekend vacation or split between the two?
They typically check in on Thursday or Friday and check out on Sunday.
Yeah.
In the summertime, we have more week-long stays when kids are out of school. My aunt's campground right down the road has a pool.
Yeah.
She gets more 7 to 10-day stays, which it would be a negative impact on her campground, especially if we didn't continue with a 7-day option.
And then so something like a 3-day permit would be of interest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
Obviously, a little less than we proposed would be helpful.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. No, that's what I had. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Good. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question, Ben.
Okay.
Justin, before you sit down, do we have the core recommendations? Has that been submitted?
Cora emailed those.
Yes,
she
a
emailed
letter,
and
yeah.
shared those recommendations. I have them with me here.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
That's okay. No problem.
Could you go over those?
Yeah, sure. Happy to.
I meant to bring that. Forgot it.
And so Cora is the Campbell Outdoor Recreation Association. Our president, Terry Lewis, is here, and Chairman Bill Stanley is right there. And we collectively as a group met a little over a month ago and put our heads together and made these recommendations. But what we're recommending is resident daily, $20. And again, these are per machine, obviously, just like your recommendation. Resident 7-day, $75. Resident annual, $100. The guide licenses fees we were okay with. Non-resident daily, the proposed fee on the new proposal is $50. I think we're okay with that. We didn't make any changes there. We proposed keeping the 7-day option for non-residents. Right now it's $81. We proposed $125 for that. Annual non-resident, $250 as opposed to $500, but it's still a big jump from currently $130. Guide license for non-resident, $1,000. We were okay with that. And that's it.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, moving along, Sheila Westray.
Lower this a whole lot. Hi, I'm Sheila Westray. I'm the original founder of Ride Royal Blue, which I proudly opened in 2006. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My love for the mountains began in childhood following my father on hunting trips for whatever was in season at the time. He was an avid outdoorsman, and to this day, I treasure several of his trophy mounts in my home. In 2005, with the guidance of Lee Asbury, I decided to build a couple of small cabins and a few RV sites, envisioning a place where families could ride their quads during the day and gather around a campfire at night. Back then, side-by-sides didn't even exist. This was not a massive corporate venture. It was born out of a deep desire to share my love for the mountains with other families and to help them create lasting memories, just as I had done with my own children since the mid-1980s. No one could have predicted how this industry would grow. I remember Division Manager Stan Stooksbury asking me how much revenue I thought could be generated through license fees. My best guess at the time was around $15,000. Within 3 years, however, we were outselling the local Walmart. I understand that growth comes with challenges, including budgetary pressures. TWRA needs additional funding to manage the land properly. However, the problem is that we don't have a clear understanding of the revenue OHV use is currently generating. I humbly ask that you consider the recommendations put forth by Cora. Additionally, I also propose implementing a 7-day resident fee and non-resident fee. introducing reasonable fee increases during a 2-year pilot period, which can help generate necessary funding without causing demand destruction. Again, I thank you for considering my comments, and I appreciate your time, commitment to ensuring the sustainability of our OHV trails and the beautiful lands that we all cherish. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Rusty Oric.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Rusty Ork. I'm one of the commissioners from Campbell County, just a few miles up the road. But we're glad to be here. I think the mayor and a few of the commissioners is also attendance. The OHV fees, and we've actually been speaking on this for over a year. I think we met with Yunus in Gatlinburg last year, and Yunus did some tweaking to it, and it's great. But it's a funding mechanism for our county, and you may not understand how that works. It's a hotel motel tax that we charge the county. It started about 20 years ago, and it generates enough money that we can offset different things in our school systems. So we've seen what happened during the, I'm just going to lay aside. I had a big speech rolled out to you. I don't need it. I just got a few minutes. I'm on the other side now as a commissioner in the Campbell County. I'm usually sitting on your seat. But I'm trying to explain to you that the hotel motel tax is a resource for us to fund, just like you are having to deal with the resource right now that you are trying to raise the fees. And I understand why you're raising it. Campbell County Commission actually adopted a resolution a couple of weeks ago, and the counties surrounding us has actually did the same thing. And we approved it. We got enough sense to know that you have got to raise the fees. We can't survive, the commission cannot survive without raising taxes occasionally to offset the cost. We know that. But we hope with the endeavor that we're talking about with the hotel motel tax, that hopefully that it'll stabilize itself. But if you get to a certain point, and I'm sorry I'm being so rushing myself through this, but hopefully you'll do it in increments, and you won't do it at one big hit, because it not just devastate our local people, it's going to devastate our hotel motel tax, which is going to trickle down to our school systems. A few weeks ago, we got a report back on our hotel motel tax, and I'll give you a little info. We lost a significant amount of money in it last year, and it's kind of what we've earmarked it. Our finance director has actually earmarked it. We got our lake, it was North Lake, which you generate so much revenue from the hotel motel tax, and we know that. But the mountains generates a big portion of it. And he earmarked it actually, and showing us, or a few of the commissioners actually got to see it so far, that it came from the last year on the OHV side, which is the mountain side, we call it, generating funding through the hotel motel tax. And the reason being is because of the alcohol prohibition. The Campbell County Commission, and I think most majority of our citizens gives you thumbs up for that. We don't want alcohol on our WMAs, which we took a lick. But if this is not kind of, and I know you are tasked with a great task to deal with this, but if you don't handle it real fragile, we could actually lose this whole section here. People will end up going other places and riding. But keep this in mind. Keep this in mind if you can. We're not here to bow beachings to death by no means. We are real thankful. Every director Yunus had the last 3 I've sat in front of and spoke to. Yunus are a great organization. Yunus are great for Campbell County. I used to be a coal miner. The reason some of these places that's being rolled in Campbell County was strip mines. It has increased and got better over the years. Why? Because people's riding them and TWRA. I know that. We're not stupid. But if this happens and it gets sent to a certain level and these fees are charged this level, people will quit coming to Campbell County. It's an industry for Campbell County. You may not agree. It's an industry for us. We don't have a whole lot of industry in our county. We got the lake, we got North Lake. I hope some of you has actually got to fish it. But we got the mountains. And once part of that's took off, we're going to take a lick. And the only source we can come up with revenue is a tax increase. And I don't want that to be broadcasted all the way back to Campbell County from Memphis, but that's where we set at. So hopefully that you'll look at it from a different point and slowly do this and increase it slowly. You will know what kind of funding you're bringing in next year. If you do it slowly, if you do it all of a sudden, it's like selling a product. You can sell products and you can sell them too quick, and you can run customers off. And if it goes too high, we feel, the Campbell County Commission feels that's what's going to happen. Now with us, we're going to have to back up and punt. So hopefully, you'll come to a solution. I know I've sat in your seats and I've had a chance. We usually have our workshop. This is kind of like a workshop the way we look at it. But you're coming back tomorrow to vote. Usually we have a week to sleep on it. And within that week's time, I get a lot of calls and I get a lot of calls on what TWRA does. Joe Elkins is here. I've seen him, and I call Joe occasionally about things that's going on in our county. Right to the point. They help us every chance to get. But we appreciate y'all. We really do. We thank TWRA. We thank the board. I appreciate the time. I am thankful, and the commission is thankful that you give us an opportunity to come down here. A few miles we had to drive, but we're here in Memphis with you all, and we appreciate for the chance that we got to speak. It may not go far, but I know, and we know, that you are tasked with a big task. I know that. Been there and done that. Not on yours level. I looked at yours budget, and yours budget is probably about as big as Campbell County's whole entire budget, which is decent as far as I look at. But yours are tasked, and we'll be praying for y'all, hoping to make good decisions. I know we will. But I want to thank God this evening for the opportunity to be here and for what we got in our county, because He's the one's made it. Appreciate you all.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Warwick.
I have a question, Chairman, if you,
2 seconds.
yeah, don't run off yet. I have 2 questions.
Commissioner
Sir?
Warwick, can you come back to the microphone, please?
You just don't want to get me started. My fellow commissioners know when they get me kick started, I don't quit.
Well, one of my questions is, do you have any records of how much non-alcohol on WMA has affected calls from EMS or from your?
No, we do not. We're actually working on that as we speak. We have anytime you get a call, I know most of you, I talked to some of the agents this morning and the director. We had a bad wreck with a side-by-side, 2 or 3 weeks ago, Mayor? And one of the guys lost his life, went over a 200-foot embankment, which is a strip pit. And it had something to do with alcohol. They're going to violate the law anyway. But guess who goes on those? I know you all do, but our ambulance service and our rescue squad, and sometimes they're exhausted by what they do. But no, we won't have those for a while. But I'm sure, without a shadow of a doubt, I ride. My family rides. We enjoy the mountains. God's blessed us with them. We're going to enjoy them. And we're going to take care of them too. And we try to. I'm not trying to get sidetracked. We try to. Campbell County government has got a good process. The litter control officer, Glennis Mundy, that works on a lot of things. A lot of the bigger people that deals with this knows this. But we'll have that information. But it's going to make a change. We can see the change with the money that's coming in because of it. But it's okay. We'll survive that. But I promise you, we won't survive if the fees are not looked at real close.
Okay, and the next question, I know you're pretty passionate about it, but I spoke to you earlier.
Yes, sir.
This morning about the possibility of consideration from county helping to offset some of the costs from maintenance standpoint. And you probably can't give us an answer now, but
I can't give you an answer. The rock, and you're talking about gravel,
whatever,
and
or
as far and I know yous are paying for rock, and I know who you're buying it from. We know all the players. There's a possibility that we could sit down and work out some kind of agreement. It's a government entity with a government entity, and sell you gravel at a cheaper cost. I think we've been mining gravel for the last 4 or 5 years around $4 or $5 a ton. We mine our own gravel. There's a possibility. We work together any way we can. We have a road superintendent that's been around about 10 or 12 years, and he worked with y'all too. I'm sure he has.
That would be a consideration to help the budget, because instead of $300 or $400 a load for rock, that $4 a ton, depending on how much you're hauling, whether it's 20 or
20.
40,000 pounds, that reduces the cost considerably.
Yeah. Yeah, you use a lot of gravel and probably need to use a lot more.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Orrick. We appreciate your time.
I appreciate you. Thank
Yes,
you
sir.
all for what you
Mr.
do.
Chairman.
Okay,
Question.
yes, sure.
First off, I want to thank all of y'all for coming all the way down here from Campbell County. I don't think I've ever driven that road, but I can appreciate it because I've been to Campbell County and really pretty place. Just one quick question. How much is your hotel motel tax?
Let me refer
I mean,
to Chairman
roughly.
Bruce is here today. He's our chairman of budget and finance, and there's so many aspects that we have to keep up with. You remember Johnny? We generate about 1.8 million, the best of my knowledge, on the hotel motel tax, and it's divided up in different parts. And some of it goes, I don't know if you've been keeping track with it. Some of it goes to the chamber, and they've been pushing for the last couple of years to push a lot of that for the chamber. But a lot of ours goes to the school systems to offset and help the school system out.
The calculated budget for 2024 year is 1.393 million.
On the hotel motel tax. Yeah, and actually last year we lost over $100,000.
And what is that per night? You think?
Well, it's
roughly?
statewide. It's statewide. It's a nickel, 5 cents on the dollar. So you calculate that. And when they started this, I've been a commissioner almost 20 years. It started 2 years before I came there, and they figured it would generate $17,000 a year. And our county, our small county, which we got the lake, and we got a lot of lake homes, and we got the mountains. Now we have the RV in the cabins that collects. And I will say that the people that's here tonight that Spallery spoke to, they collect it, and it's paid, and it comes in the county. But it generates Sevier County. I would be unreal how much Sevier County brings in, but it's all supposed to be used in sort of a sense of a way of tourism. But I think we kind of grabbed the ball real quick and changed ours around to put it toward the schools.
Okay, thanks so much,
Thank
sir.
you so much.
All right, did you have a question, Commissioner Bullock?
No, sir.
Okay, so next up on the list is Mr. Jack Lynch.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm the mayor of Campbell County. I don't want to go into details. I don't want to be long-winded with you. You had I think Rusty gave a great presentation. Our commission does a great job. Every dollar spent, they vote on. So, I mean, we have worked the budget entirely. We need the hotel motel tax. Price goes up, demand goes down. That's very simple. And it's going to happen, I believe. But we just want to survive the hit. And I believe we can if you tweak it. And I believe you will. Cora has a great proposal also, and we support that. I'll tell you, I represent 40,000 people in Campbell County. Before I came, I talked to the mayors of the 5 counties that are either on the WMA or touch the WMA. All the mayors basically that I've talked to, I missed one, I think, support the idea of a step increase or a smaller increase, I guess, because we're all worried about the tax repercussions that might happen. So that's where we're at. And like I say, I won't take much of your time. Rusty did a great presentation. That's where we're at. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you.
So, Deputy Director Fish, tomorrow in the presentation, can you be sure to add a column that shows the core presentation for easy comparison? Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate it. All right, next up on the list is Tommy Overton from Norris Lake Towing.
I'm Tommy Overton, and I run Towboat North Lake. We're, for better words, we're AAA on water. When you're out on the lake and you broke down, I'm your best friend. I'm a little different than the Cora. I'm on the other side. The proposed rates that you've got for the boating registration fees are way low. You're at a 22. We've got the same disease, I see, but they're way low. You're going from a $13 to a $15 raise. Come on, guys. Let's get real. You know, we need some more officers on that water. More often and more officers. I mean, it's simple, and it takes more money. The only way we can do that is raise the boater fees. We've got, on our lake, on any given weekend, we've got 2,500, 3,000 boats out there, and they're not paying enough money. You know, I'm out there every day. I see things on that lake that the general public probably don't see. The dangers. I look for my safety, your safety, my family's safety, everybody's. We need more officers. And the only way we can do that is raise the fees. You know, we have an influx of out-of-state boaters. Now, I don't know exactly how this would work. They don't pay anything to be on our lakes, not one dime. They bring that out-of-state boat, they bring it, put it on our water, spend time there. They go back to Ohio, Indiana, wherever. There's no registration fee for them. I walk down the docks, many docks on our lake. I see boats sitting there all over everywhere. That's not been registered in 3 to 5, 10 years. Old registrations on them. I see boats. It's supposedly, if you're on the water for 60 days, you're supposed to be registered in Tennessee. No, those boats have been there for several years, and they're still registered out of state. You know, we need to start looking at some of this. We need some more officers on that water. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Overton, for your time and your comments. We appreciate it. Next up is Angela or Scott D'Amico. Or are y'all going to go together?
Thanks for being up here. We own DTF Power Sports.
State your name for the record.
Scott D'Amico and Angela D'Amico. We own DTF Power Sports and DTF Diner. And we're right across the street from Ride Royal Blue Park here with them guys. And we hear a lot of people come through our Power Sports and our restaurant. And everybody complains about this new fee. And it just seems like going from $137 to $500. Everybody says they're not coming back. And we employ quite a few local people. Not only that, we live there. And we just feel like if the fee goes up to that high, we are going to lose a lot of people to other riding parks. And when we lose them to other riding parks, it's going to be a lot to get them back. And we know it's got to go up because we would love to see the trails maintained better. I mean, so in order to maintain the trails better, got to have more money. So we're not opposed to raising the fee. We'd rather do it in small increments. Say next year, you know, if there's not enough money after the study's done, we raise it again. You know, I mean, I think that's just more logical than jumping it from 137 to 500. So I hope you guys take it in consideration that, you know, we employ people there, and if people don't come back, we can't keep people employed. And, you know, we come from Indiana. We're not from there. We come from Indiana. We come down 2016 to start riding. And then next thing you know, we liked it so much, we bought a piece of property down there. We decided to open up a business. So went from there to the next little business, and we're right there at the main of it all. And I'd hate to see it all go away just by a bunch of, you know, the fees jumping too high. So appreciate the time and hope you guys make the right decision.
Thank you very much, Scott. Next up is Mr. Craig Roberts.
Hey, Hey guys, thank y'all for being here. My name's Craig Roberts. I'm from Asheville, North Carolina. I'm an avid sportsman, outdoorsman. I've killed lots of deer, poured out lots of fish out of the water, and I love it. I love the outdoors. I started coming to Campbell County a few years ago to ride. I loved it so much on a recommendation to other people. It's beautiful scenery. It's a great place to be. It's the best trails in the country, and they were right. And so I started there and loved it so much. I left my job with the Department of Public Safety in North Carolina after several years to come there and manage Rock Ridge Resort for Miss Sheila. There in Pioneer, Tennessee. And that job affords me the opportunity to see thousands of people in the last few years. And I got to see stuff that you don't get to see. You guys don't get to see. And that's what I'm going to talk about. I had all kinds of numbers and statistics, but you know what's important is the faces that goes with this decision that's going to be made. I'm talking about the faces of the people that come here and they're so stressed out and distraught from the everyday life they have to live in. They drove several hours with their families and they get here and they come in. You see it in the guys' faces. And when they leave a week or 3, 4, 5, 7 days later, you can see how the weight's been lifted off their shoulders because they got to enjoy God's beauty that He has provided us with. I get to see the faces and listen to the comments of the people that we go riding with. And when they see one of these overlooks for the first time and they walk up to it and they look out and they see Norris Lake and they can see the Smoky Mountains and they can see those things and they're awestruck and they start jerking the cameras out. I've seen people wiping tears. I've seen grown men sit down and sigh and sob back tears when they see God's beauty from these beautiful trails that we have. And there's no way to get to those things if we didn't have these trails and these side-by-sides getting there to them. I get to see the faces of the little kids that walk up. And when they get back from the trail and they're muddy and dirty and they say, look, Mr. Craig, how much mud I got? And they're so happy. And they start pulling stuff out of their pockets or carrying flowers or a little rock or a special stick that they found. They say, look, my sword I found, this is so-and-so. I get people that come in, they show me the pictures of the wildlife that they took. Or they say, you're not going to believe this. On Trail 13, we saw a mama bear and her cubs. Oh my gosh, it was so beautiful. We sat back and watched her. She was on the hill and she went up the trees and it was just the most, oh my gosh, I've never seen that in my life. Women crying, grown women. So I'm 64 years old and I've never seen a bear in the wild. And people seen deer and elk and you name it, and the turkeys and whatever. And people love that. And they don't get to other places. And they talk about the beauty and they talk about the trails. Yes, we need money. We all know that. It costs money to do what we do. And the trails, do they get damaged? Some. A lot of it's from erosions. It's not from machines. There's answers to that. And the answer is not run people off. The answer is to take those people's faces in consideration and to look at them. And when you realize the people like Scott and different ones that have spent their livelihoods and borrowed money and came in, and now all of a sudden it may all go away. You think about those faces when you're making those decisions tomorrow, the faces of these people, those kids, those families that won't have the chance to come out of the cities and stuff anymore because they can't. Every single person we've talked to since this was proposed said, we'll never be back if it goes to $500. We can't do it. So we love you. We pray for y'all. We love what y'all do. We're praying for you. Please consider those faces tomorrow when you make those decisions.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. And Mr. Bill Stanley, I'll let you bring it home and representing Cora, please, sir.
Appreciate y'all letting me ramble on, and I will work hard to stay underneath, and everybody that knows me is just shaking their head and bowing it. Bill Stanley, chairman of the board of Cora, Campbell Outdoor Recreation Association. I believe most of the board are familiar with us. If not, I'll be glad to bore you to death with details after. But a friend of mine who worked for TWRA, who I'm very close to, we were talking about an issue 4 or 5 years ago. And he said something that resounded with me that said, there are 2 things that outdoorsmen hate: the way it is and change. And I found that really prophetic. And so we're always struggling with those issues. But Cora, our position, and we've provided you some detailed comments, and I'll answer any questions you have about it. To us, it's all about the mountain. When Cora helped TWRA and the commission acquire this property, it was covered with strip mines. And Mr. Cox, I can remember when Stinking Creek was yellow 365 days a year. Now we can get trout off of there. We are as committed to maintaining and improving those trails as the agency. And we realize it takes money to do that. And I can tell you, you have an extremely dedicated and focused group of people that represent the agency there on a daily basis. Everybody cares for them. Even if we disagree, we realize there's a stronger mission for us all. A couple of the things that I would want you to think about, we are all in support of trail improvement. Our proposal has what we think is reasonable cost because we need to know what the base is before we can budget, which is the entire impetus behind our proposal to this. And certainly an eye to the future, because we also provide several comments in detail about things that we think are forward-looking for the agency and for the WMA. This is the crown jewel from my perspective of TWRA because it sees more visitors than every other one combined. And your own study says 60% of them are for out of state. So it's an amazing crown jewel for this agency and for the state. And we also believe that incremental approach to this, where you understand the base of where the budget is based on the permit sales and then adjust incrementally. It's kind of like taking care of a leaky roof. Let's figure out what the leak is instead of finding ourselves having to replace the roof every 10 years. And we think that would be an appropriate way to do it. Thank you for your time.
Stanley, if you'd like to go another minute to wrap up, it's fine if you're not done.
That's very kind of you, sir. A couple of things that we wanted to emphasize here is reducing the current proposed rates, and I think Justin shared those. We believe looking at what the income is after a year so that you understand what the agency can do and what that base is, and then adjust based on certainly the top-down budget as well as the baseline budget. One of the things that we think is very important is share the plan of what is going to happen on the WMA. In other words, let us know what's going to go on in terms of trail maintenance and tell us what you did when you did that. We think that is very important. We know that some over $400,000 comes from the TDAC grant. We think you need to continue that. I'm a big fan, never give up revenue. And the annual plan. And certainly we believe the future of the WMA is in the youth. So we would love to see part of this focused, just a small percentage, on ethical riding, responsible riding. Commissioner Orick mentioned Glennis Monday. He's on our board. First time he did a litter pickup, and on the WMA, it was 36 truckloads, tandem truckloads, okay, which is like 16,000 pounds, if I recall. Now we're down to almost 1,000 pounds when we do that because of the progress that's made, and getting rid of alcohol helped with that. So we'll be glad to answer any questions on what we've suggested, and I'll entertain any questions. Thank you.
Any questions? Got any questions for Mr. Stanley? Okay, seeing none, thank you, Mr. Stanley, for your time, sir. Okay, that brings us to the end of our agenda. Do any commissioners have any other comments or questions before we adjourn? Seeing none, I remind everybody that our meeting tomorrow is a full commission meeting at 9 a.m. We'll have a full rulemaking hearing where comments will be allowed tomorrow. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.